Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Okay, let's dive in. Picture this. You're maybe enjoying your favorite salty snack. Could be chips, maybe some instant noodles, or grabbing a quick fast food meal. Tastes good, right?
Yeah.
But what if that simple pleasure, that salty hit, was actually kicking off a quiet battle inside your brain? One that could, well, secretly be pushing up your blood pressure.
It does sound a bit like something out of a movie, doesn't it? But, this is exactly what some really groundbreaking new research is pointing towards. For ages, when we thought about high blood pressure, hypertension, we mostly looked at the heart and kidneys.
Right, the usual suspects.
Exactly. They were seen as ground zero where the problem started. But this fascinating new study, it's really shifting the focus, putting the spotlight somewhere totally unexpected. The brain.
Yeah, it's a huge shift. We're not just tweaking an old idea here. It feels like a fundamental rethink. So today, we're going deep into this, well, potentially revolutionary study. It suggests the brain could be that missing link for literally millions of people whose high blood pressure just won't budge with standard treatment. We've pulled together insights from a recent health news piece and, crucially, from the original scientific paper published in Neuron. It was led by Marcia Prager-Katorsky's team at McGill University.
And our mission really for this deep dive is to unpack all this complex science. We want to break down step by step how eating too much salt might trigger this brain inflammation and then, explore what this could actually mean for treating high blood pressure down the line.
Get ready for some serious aha moments, folks. This could really change the game.
Absolutely. So, like you said, the traditional view, it's all about blood vessels getting stiff or the kidneys not handling fluids right. And the standard meds target those things.
And they work for a lot of people.
They do, for many. But here's the kicker, the really interesting part. About a third of patients don't respond well. Their blood pressure stays stubbornly high.
That's a huge number.
It is. And this new research offers a potential reason why. It suggests the brain itself might be driving the hypertension, especially in those really tough to treat cases.
So it's not just a symptom showing up in the brain, but potentially the origin point.
That's the implication, yeah. A completely novel mechanism. The idea is that for some people, the issue isn't just in the body's plumbing, so to speak, but it starts centrally, deep inside the brain, setting off this whole chain reaction.
Wow. That really reframes the problem. So how did the researchers even figure this out? What was the setup?
Well, they used rats for the study, and that's actually important. They specifically chose rats, not mice.
Oh, why rats?
Because rats regulate salt and water more like humans do. Their kidneys, their brains, fluid balance systems, it's a closer match. So the findings are, let's say, more likely to be relevant to us.
Okay, that makes sense. And the diet, was it some crazy amount of salt?
You might think so, but actually no. They gave the rats water with 2% salt. Now, that might sound like a lot, but it's roughly comparable to a human diet that's consistently high in processed foods.
Like?
Think daily fast food, bacon, instant noodles, processed cheese slices, stuff that's unfortunately pretty common in many modern diets.
Huh. So it's not some weird lab scenario. It actually reflects how some people eat.
Exactly. Which makes the results feel much more direct, much more relevant.
Okay, so these rats are on this relatable high-salt diet. What was the first thing the researchers noticed happening inside their brains?
The first big discovery, the foundation really, was that the high-salt diet triggered brain inflammation. Not like the whole brain swelling up, but a specific immune response within the brain. Certain immune cells got activated in a particular brain region.
Brain inflammation from salt.
Okay.
What are these immune cells, and what do they do once the salt activates them?
They're called microglia. You can think of microglia as the brain's own dedicated immune force, like tiny security guards constantly patrolling the area.
Gotcha.
In response to the high-salt diet, these microglia didn't just become generally active, they physically changed shape. They went from having lots of branches, sort of quiet, to being more blob-like, more reactive. And then they started gathering around specific neurons.
Which neurons?
Specifically neurons that produce a hormone called vasopressin.
Okay, so the brain's immune cells, microglia, get activated by salt, change shape, and cluster around these vasopressin neurons. What happens next? This is where it gets really weird, right?
This is where it gets fascinating, yeah. These reactive microglia didn't just, cause general swelling or damage. They did something very specific. They started eating parts of other brain cells.
Eating them.
Yes, a process called phagocytosis. They were literally engulfing and pruning, like trimming away, bits of another crucial cell type called astrocytes.
Astrocytes, right. Those are the star-shaped ones, the support cells for neurons.
Exactly. Astrocytes are incredibly important. They wrap around neurons and synapses, the connections between neurons. One of their main jobs is like a cleanup crew.
Cleanup.
Yeah, they mop up neurotransmitters, especially glutamate, from the space around neurons after a signal has been sent. This keeps the signaling clean and precise. Without them, things get messy.
So if the microglia are eating bits of the astrocytes, they're basically damaging the brain's cleanup crew.
That's a great way to put it. They're impairing the astrocyte's ability to do its job.
And specifically the glutamate cleanup. What happens when that system breaks down?
When the microglia pruned off those astrocyte bits, their little arms, essentially the astrocytes couldn't clear glutamate effectively anymore. This resulted in what the paper calls glutamate spillover.
Spillover, meaning too much glutamate floating around where it shouldn't be.
Precisely. Glutamate is a powerful chemical signal, so having it just hanging around in the extracellular space outside of the synapse is a problem.
Okay, so there's this excess glutamate spilling everywhere. What does that trigger?
This extra glutamate wasn't just inert. It bumped into and activated specific receptors on those nearby vasopressin neurons. These receptors are called N-methyl-D-aspartate receptors, or NMDA receptors.
And vasopressin, that's the hormone you mentioned earlier. What does it do again?
Vasopressin has a pretty well-known role. It raises blood pressure, it tells your kidneys to hold on to water, and it constricts blood vessels. So this glutamate spillover is essentially flipping the on switch for a hormone that jacks up blood pressure.
Wow. Okay, let me see if I've got this chain right. High salt intake.
Yep.
Activates microglia,
Right.
which then damage astrocytes,
By pruning them, yes.
leading to glutamate spillover, which activates vasopressin neurons.
Correct.
And that raises blood pressure. Is that the sequence?
You nailed it. That's the cascade they uncovered. And they went further to prove it.
How so?
They showed this increased activity in vasopressin neurons, fueled by the whole microglia astrocyte glutamate mess, directly caused higher blood pressure in the rats. And, crucially, when they used a drug to stop the microglia from getting activated in the first place...
Let me guess, the blood pressure didn't go up as much.
Exactly. Inhibiting the microglia significantly reduced the high blood pressure caused by the salt diet. That's really strong evidence that this whole brain pathway is a direct cause.
That is genuinely mind-blowing. A whole new way hypertension can start, originating right there in the brain. So, what does this mean for us, for people listening? Why is this such a big deal?
Well, it fundamentally changes how we might need to think about high blood pressure, doesn't it? It reveals this hidden mechanism driven by diet, involving immune cells, support cells, and hormones, all within the brain.
It's not just pipes and pumps anymore.
Not entirely, no. And this is especially huge for that large group of people, that 1/3 whose hypertension just doesn't respond to current drugs. This could finally explain why their blood pressure is so resistant. It might be coming from a completely different source, the brain.
So if we know this brain pathway exists, does this open up completely new avenues for treatment? Like therapies we haven't even thought of for blood pressure?
Oh, absolutely. That's the really exciting part. This research could pave the way for entirely new classes of drugs that target the brain directly.
Like what kind of drugs?
Imagine, perhaps, therapies designed to calm down those overactive microglia, stop them from pruning the astrocytes. Or maybe drugs that help the astrocytes work better, improving that glutamate cleanup.
So you could potentially treat high blood pressure by targeting brain inflammation or astrocyte function.
That's the potential, yes. It could offer real hope for people with treatment-resistant hypertension, moving beyond just managing symptoms in the body to addressing a potential root cause in the brain. It's a whole new therapeutic landscape.
That really is revolutionary. But, every study has its questions, its limitations. What are some things to keep in mind here?
Good point. Science is always about building and refining. So first, this study was done in rats. And while they're a good model for fluid balance, as we said, we definitely need more research. Potentially using different models or tools, maybe genetic tools that are still being developed for rats, to really confirm and flesh out these findings for humans.
Okay, fair enough. And something that struck me earlier, why were the microglia so specific? Why eat the astrocytes but leave the neurons mostly alone? That
Yes.
seems selective.
That is a fantastic question, and it's something researchers are actively looking into. It's not totally clear yet. One idea is that the astrocytes might be sending out signals, like eat me signals, or maybe reducing the don't eat me signals they normally have.
So communication between the cells.
Possibly. Another interesting angle involves molecules called endocannabinoids. We know vasopressin neurons release these, and endocannabinoids can influence how microglia move and what they, eat. So there might be this complex chemical conversation happening that directs the microglia specifically towards the astrocytes in this high salt situation.
Fascinating. And was this microglia-astrocyte interaction happening everywhere in the brain, or was it localized?
Very localized, actually. They primarily saw these changes, the activated microglia, the pruned astrocytes, specifically in the brain regions, packed with those vasopressin neurons, areas called the SO and PVN, the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei.
Not just general brain inflammation, then.
No, it was quite targeted. This suggests these specific brain areas might be uniquely vulnerable to high salt levels, perhaps because these vasopressin neurons are naturally tuned to detect changes in blood saltiness or osmolality. They're already monitoring that, so maybe a chronic high salt diet pushes them and the surrounding cells over the edge.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the main takeaway for listeners navigating their own health?
I think the biggest thing is seeing this incredible connection. Our deep dive today shows this hidden link between the salt you eat, these tiny immune cells in your brain, and ultimately your blood pressure. It really highlights how interconnected everything is.
Yeah, diet influencing brain immunity, influencing cardiovascular health. It's complex.
It really is. And while we need more research, especially in humans, just knowing about this potential pathway, this surprising influence of diet on brain cells and blood pressure is empowering. It gives you a new perspective on why managing salt intake might be important, beyond the traditional reasons.
It definitely makes you think twice about that extra sprinkle of salt.
It does. And here's a final thought to chew on. This study focused on vasopressin neurons, the ones that raise blood pressure. But right nearby in the brain are oxytocin neurons.
Oxytocin. Isn't that the love hormone?
It is, but it also does other things. Interestingly, oxytocin can have the opposite effect of vasopressin on salt balance. It promotes sodium excretion, helping the body get rid of salt.
Huh. So if high salt activates microglia around vasopressin neurons, could it also be affecting oxytocin neurons, and what would the microglia be doing there?
Exactly. Could microglia be involved in that pathway too? Maybe dampening the salt excreting effect?
Right.
Or maybe even trying to boost it. We don't know yet. It just shows there's probably an even more complex story unfolding in our brains in response to diet than we currently understand. Lots more to discover.
A really fascinating possibility. It leaves you wondering about all the intricate checks and balances happening up there.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.